Welcome to the Teacher's Pep Rally. If you missed our last episode with David McCardo about teaching and serving a school community, please go back and check it out. Our guest today cultivates a love for learning. She teaches children how to think independently and share their voice with truth, integrity, and kindness. As an art teacher, she celebrates risk-taking and recognizes that we learn from our mistakes. I love it. Please welcome to the Teacher's Pep Rally, Patsy Rausch.
And Rausch.
Rausch.
It happens all the time.
Pronounce your last name for me, please.
Rausch.
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 I love that.
Oh, I get many different versions from the students. Grouch, Rash, Roosh, Mrs. Bush. I get that a lot. They seem to think music and art are like that.
They're married. They're married.
You're the married couple.
Yeah.
So thank you for pointing that out. You and Pete do have a history. You do work together. So we're looking forward to hearing some of the fun and exciting things that you two have experienced in the classroom and in a school. And I think that's hilarious that the kids think I thought you're married. Where I was teaching for a while at a high school, so English teacher, he was Mr. King and he was the drama teacher. He was the drama department teacher. And so a lot of times people thought we were married, but we were not.
No, I tell them no, he has a beautiful wife and I have an adorable husband and no. So, and then the next day they say the same thing. So they're not listening.
That's when you just start going with it, right?
Really should.
Improv.
I should just like run with it.
Yeah. All right. So tell me a little bit, if I were to walk into your classroom, which I'm hoping maybe one day I can, what would it look like?
Gosh. Okay. So it's like controlled chaos. Right? It's bright, it's colorful, it's like visually eye candy. I love tchotchke. And so there's stuff everywhere in every nook and cranny, whether it's magnets or stickers, books, toys, art. The kids' art is up. My art is up. It's like you took your big crayon box and just awesome. Everywhere. Awesome. In fact, it's funny. One day I was sitting at my desk, which is like, if you look through my front door, you're looking right at my desk. And there's a mantle behind me, like this antique mantle that I inherited from the old art teacher. And on my mantle is I've got Star Wars figures. I've got, yes, I do. I've got my baby Yoda up there. I've got Monsters Inc. I've got Marvel, all of it. I love all of it. And I'm sitting there with this, it's actually that picture that you use with the scarf and my hair's all out. And I'm just sitting there doing work and a kid came in to drop something off and they got right up to my desk and they went, whoa, because I moved and like, Miss Rausch, I didn't even know you were in here. You like blend right in. So it is just like, it's crazy. It's just a crazy scene. And the kids love it. They love it. They respond to that.
I love that.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. I think I love you. You're
just picking up husbands everywhere, aren't you?
I was like, wow. So we got to ask you though. I mean, if you said Star Wars and you could see behind me, are they the vintage figures or what do you have in particular?
Okay, so I have a Darth Vader that actually, like, if you take off his mask, it's Anakin. And when you put the mask on, he makes noises and he's got a lightsaber. I've got a Yoda Lego clock. I've got the baby Yoda, up there. I've got who else? I have a Sith, what is it? A Sith trooper. And the kids tell me, Miss Rausch, that's a Sith trooper, right? But what I've done is I've taken all their weapons off of them because you can't have that. And I've given them art supplies to hold on to. So I like kind of rigged up the lightsaber for Darth Vader and it's a mechanical pencil. And the Sith is holding like a paintbrush and blah, blah. And I tell the kids that they've gone to the art side.
Oh.
That's
I like that
on there. Yeah. So they like all that stuff in the background with all the art supplies on it. Yeah. So So they are good, I guess, action figures. I don't know. I mean, I grew up with that Star Wars age where my brother had he had the case with remember the little one?
Yes. Yes.
He had them all. He had all that stuff. And
Cool.
he let me play with a Jawa. That's what I got. I got to play with a Jawa.
Oh,
That's it. He wouldn't let me touch any of the other ones. So yeah, but I don't think they're worth anything. I think they're just there for funsies.
No, they're worth what you want them to be worth.
Right.
That's the thing. That's awesome. I just have to ask because that's good details to have.
I'm total geek, but I'll be honest with you, I'm a Trekkie more than into the Star Wars.
I've been biting my lip. I didn't want to say anything.
I know.
Yeah,
We will have lunch together in the classroom, and Pete and the PE teacher, back before COVID, when we could all eat together, they would have all these conversations about Star Wars. And I would pop in like, okay, but what was that the one where Picard was talking about a metaphor and stuff? And they would just be like, just shut up. Yeah. So I'm a Trekkie more than
nice.
Star Wars.
Nice. We can go on all night just talking about science fiction.
Right.
But we need to get back over there. But that's cool though. I think that's neat because it once again makes that connection with the students. You know, It lets them know a little bit more about you, a little bit your interests. Lets them know that you're a person. You know, all those, and I think that's really needed.
Yes. And that honestly, it's interesting you say that. I have a mentee. She's I would say a little girl. She's 20 something. She teaches art at Sedalia Park Elementary School. And she reached out to me asking me if I'd be her mentor and had a lot of questions for me being a new art teacher, and was like, how do I connect to the kids? How do I, and what you're saying about let the kids know you're human. Let the kids know you're flawed. Let the kids know that you make mistakes, that you have adventures, that you try something and it doesn't work and you try it a different way, because that connection, then you become real to them. Mm-hmm. And then they're invested in your teaching because you're not, you don't put yourself on a pedestal. You're not intimidating. You're real. And then they can connect to you. And then they're really interested in what you're doing, because they want to see, in my case, probably how's she going to screw this one up? Or, let's see where this is going. I'm on this journey with you, Mrs. Rausch. You're not always the Sherpa. Sometimes I'm in the back of the line, just kind of watching them go. So, yeah. So it's interesting you say that, because it is how you connect to your students.
Yeah, definitely.
I've always said when I interview teachers, the first thing I ask them is tell me about your classroom, because I think it tells us a lot about the type of teacher that they are in the classroom, what their environment is going to be like for the children. Like, mm-hmm. For me, that's the most important thing. And right away I got from you're fun, you're inviting, you're asking anyone in that room to be playful, which then mm-hmm. kind of goes along with that idea of that when you're being playful, you can take risks, you can be vulnerable, right? And then and it's a little chaotic. And you said, you've got this organized chaos. So I imagine there's a lot of engagement, a lot of noise. And I don't think the noise is a bad thing. I think that sounds like it's an opportunity for lots of growing personally and academically for kids.
I agree. And I really feel like right now with the environment in which we're teaching, everything seems so sterile. Everything seems so restricted that when they come into the art room and things get a little out of hand, and for me, that's a lot. I mean, other than Pete comes into my room and he understands that craziness that's going on. He lives that world. But there's other teachers that will pop in to borrow things and they're like, what is happening in here? Yeah. And it's just like, what? I honestly don't understand what that look on your face is, because this is my world. This is what it's like here. But to let them have a sense of normalcy while they're in there, to laugh out loud, to be silly, to just get up and wiggle. Because I know in their gen ed classroom, they're restricted to their desk. They've got these shields up and it just seems very industrial. So I want to try to create in the classroom, especially now, a normalcy, playful, fun, just kind of let them feel like they're not stuck in this pandemic for just the 45 minutes that I have them. You know, let them get messy. That's a big thing. So worried about getting messy. Oh my gosh, get messy. You know, they'll spill something and they're like, I was like, no big deal, dude. Get a towel. It's not.
Do we still use Smocks in the art class?
You know, it's funny you say that because I do have Smocks and we never used them because it literally takes 15 minutes to get a kid in a smock.
It's like herding cats, right?
It is. It's ridiculous. And so I just tell them, push up your sleeves. We're about to get messy. And I say, everything's non-toxic. It'll wash out. Yeah. Could you drink your paint water? Sure. I don't advise it, but it won't kill you. But you know what I mean? But yeah, the smocks take a long time, but they're still there.
That's good.
That's funny. Funny you brought that up, Aaron, because I don't know why. I vividly remember going to buy my first smock in first grade, honestly. And it was, and I you know, the reason why I remember it is it was this, you know, we had to wear this thing, but it had pockets in the front. I think they all do, right? That's the thing. But this one had tools. It came with a plastic hammer, a plastic screwdriver, a wrench, and a saw.
Really?
Yeah. And it was art. It was one of those, for art. No, it was an art smock, but it came with tools. And because I remember we went to pick it out and my mom was holding it up. And I'm like, that's the one. And I remember to this day. I don't know where it is, funny. But it's
no, we have.
You were gonna say you still have it, buddy.
Yeah.
Just the word's fun to say. Smock.
Well, and I have a bin. It's the smock. And then one time all the strings got knotted and there was a smock knot. We had to figure it out. We said that all day. Watch out for the smock knot. Let's undo the smock knot.
That was in a Star Trek episode.
Smock knot.
Can I just say how much I'm behaving?
I'm seeing it.
I have held back so much.
You got
already.
The case of the wiggles, Pete.
I've held back so much.
I see.
Don't hold back, bud. Don't hold back.
I don't want to lose our rating.
Let it go.
It's okay.
So, hey,
Fine.
when I had the opportunity to get a guest on, Patsy was the first person I thought of. She is the finest educator that I've ever worked with, period. She's it. And she is, as you can hear, a teacher's teacher, but also an artist's artist. And so often when an art person goes into education, they lose something or vice versa. And she's figured out a way to keep that drive, keep that spark, keep that thing alive in her. Her room is a magical place. It's musical. I envy her because in my room, music is what we're learning. And I have to get in the grind a little bit. We have to, you know, see how the sausage is made a little bit. Sometimes it takes a little bit of the fun out of that. Sometimes she just pops on a record. I think my son loves records because of Miss Rausch's art class. And it's a safe place. I think our philosophies are very similar. We jive. We're totally a team. I think art and music teachers, we're definitely our own islands. We have to be our own advocates. I think we help each other out. We bounce off each other. We support each other. We keep each other line. She lights a fire under my ass when I need it. She tells me when look, you're off, let it go. And I think I just love the relationship we have.
Yeah.
This year, after every class, we run to each other's room. We switch off. We trade a sanitizing mister. So after every single class, we have to mist our room down. So I'll run into her room and we just for a second share how the last class went, how the last lesson went. And I cherish it. I cherish the connection we have because it's truly something special. You don't have it everywhere. So yeah.
Yeah. And it's funny you say that about he comes in for the fogger. And it's nice because we get to have that like quick 2-minute just how to go. But the thing I love about that, Pete, is we always, as you're leaving, there's always laughter.
Always,
no matter what we say or how frustrated that class was, or that little kid just got me today. Yeah, and I won't say the bad words, but it's like we are laughing as you're going out the door with the fogger. And I think that honestly, through all of this, again, finding the funny, and I know I mentioned that, always try to find the funny. Try to find the funny first. in anything. Maybe not funerals. Well,
No, I don't
yeah,
know. I mean, yeah.
Ricky Smiley just attended one,
Yeah.
and he had
You
some
can
hilarious
find,
jokes.
you know, you can,
Yeah.
but Pete's like, well, but and I love that because when you walk out the door, those that minutes in between class when I call it strike and set. You're striking the last class and you're setting the next. Just to get that laugh in has been fantastic.
Yep.
Sometimes I'm laughing at you, but still.
Oh, no doubt.
It's a good one.
That's amazing. You said something though that was interesting to me that I never really thought about, Pete. In both of your areas, and I don't want to minimize this, but you're both in a creative kind of element, right? So you get to create, and there really maybe doesn't need to be a lot of buildup. And I think about the stuff that I have to teach and how I have to spend sometimes weeks laying the foundation before we can actually create.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like a dirge sometimes. And I kind of think that what you just said there, where, put the record on and bam, you're right into it.
Mm-hmm.
Are there times though when you are walking through, I don't know, I'm going to label it as theory. Do you take them through those theoretical, like color mixing or even talking about tempo or notes, Pete? Do you all have to go through that in the art
Oh my
side?
gosh, yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I set up my program where I build on. So you have your principles and elements of art, and the elements of art are those basic color, line, shape, form. I start with that, with the littles, with the kinders, because for me, my art program is a lot like a math program. I'll start with the basics, and then every year I can build on it. So I'm not reinventing the wheel every year. So my kinders remember when they get to first grade, these key elements that I've shared. So when those lessons come up, I don't have to reteach that. They understand that, and I can build on that. And that's been really fortunate. Pete, I don't know about you, because
completely.
this year you haven't been able to with the
No.
instruments,
This year we're in survival mode, but still, there's still learning happening. But
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
I'll piggyback when I'm trying to teach principles of musicality, music theory, music appreciation, or history. I'll use word. My mom was an art teacher her whole life. I grew up in an art studio, art classroom. So I have enormous respect for that chaos and what she teaches in there, what Patsy does in there every day. So I would say things like, has Miss Rausch talked to you about blending? Has Miss Rausch talked to you about this? So I try to use art words. I use food words too a lot with music. And I try to bring that in. I feel art and music are the closest thing we're going to have to have some direct connecting to other subjects. And it's interesting because art and music is such an umbrella for all the other subjects. How many times have I heard, this isn't math? What are we learning about math for? This isn't history. I'm like, music and art is every subject, dude. It's just, we're a lot cooler.
Exactly. Yeah, I know. I agree. And I bring a lot of that history into the classroom. I bring a lot of that math into the classroom, science, social studies, all of it.
Yep.
And it's funny because I know when to stop with it because they get that glazed look on their face. So like, oh, when are we going to get to paint?
Let's break out.
But yeah, you do. You touch upon all of it. I mean, to me, I think that art and music really should be the umbrella in which everything else is taught under. I think that's going to capture the kids, first of all. And then within that, just kind of, enhance it with all the other subject matters. But, we always feel that way.
Right.
So,
I guess maybe the word interesting is not the right word. This idea that you share that you guys have to support each other because you don't feel the support from, gen ed. We hear about special ed teachers too, don't feel supported by the gen ed pop or teachers because, we know why, right? So we won't follow that rabbit trail. But it kind of saddens me, to be very honest, that is your truth. Because actually, that's a great best practice. I feel like that same chaos, noise, activity, engagement should be happening in reading and science, and like it should be really happening everywhere.
Yeah.
and that gen ed folks can really learn some really great best practices, not being so rigid. That's why kids are not engaged. That's why they're not absorbing everything. Because so, what do you think we need to do to kind of break those barriers? It's like,
I'll jump on. I know
got it.
At our school, I think art and music is very supported and very celebrated. If I am next to classrooms, I'm not in a arts hallway, or I'm not off. I mean, when there's testing going on, I have to figure out a way to still do music without making music. I had to do it this week. We're surrounded by, so on regular days, it's a noisy place. And we have very, very cool, easygoing neighbors. Our school's very, I wouldn't be there. I don't think Patsy would be there if it wasn't a school, right? But there are other schools that, heck no, we're not on that totem pole.
Yeah. And with my art community, I call it my art village. We're very close as far as the elementary art teachers in my community. We are all very close, and we talk all the time, and we have our teams, and we text, and we make sure that we connect quite often to kind of help each other out, support each other. And I also hear that Kincaid is rare. Our school is rare as to how much support we have as the art and music teacher. And not only that, but our enrichment team, we're very close. We constantly text each other throughout the day, and just kind of even over the weekends and vacations and summers, and we keep in touch. Right. And to have our enrichment team be very close, I heard, is quite rare. So I think Pete and I are very fortunate that we've got a great family at Kincaid to work with. I started in gen ed, actually, at Kincaid. What I started in was special ed. I started as a parapro, a one-on-one special ed for a second grader, and then got my own MID classroom. And I had that for 2 years as a special ed teacher. And then I got the job as a fourth grade teacher in gen ed. And I was in fourth grade for, I want to say, 5 or 6 years. So I started in gen ed. And then when I moved into the art program, I already had that support from the teachers because they had known me as a fourth grade teacher for 6 years. And I had kind of gained respect in that gen ed sector. So when I moved into art, they felt it was a very natural move for me. First of all, they were like, oh, I totally can see this for you. I can see that this was a good pick. But I understood, to answer your question, why gen ed teachers can't teach that way. To me, I say standardized testing. I can just get rid of it. That's just numbers. That's just statistics. That does not measure a child's intelligence whatsoever.
Agreed.
If the teachers did not have the pressure of those standardized tests, they could go back and teach a love of learning, which is what children need to learn, a love of learning, not shoving the facts in so they can crank it out at the end of the school year,
right?
But just teach them to want to learn because it's exciting, right. And it can be playful, and it can be exploratory, and it can be engaging. But how are they going to do that when their career is based on their test scores with the standardized tests? It doesn't make any sense. They want us to create these amazing human beings, but then they restrict us but you got to do it within this little box right here. That's where you're working in. And it's unfortunate. And America is one of the very few countries that actually do it this way. If you talk to students from abroad, they're just like, what? Yeah. What are you doing? Why do you do it like this? So I don't know, when are we going to wake up? Yes, exactly. That's money. What it is. That's what it is. You're right.
If we could, you did give one solution, and if we all were in charge, I think that would be one. I think the other, Letitia, I was sitting here thinking about in secondary education, what I watch is that there's not any gift of time, because there's been so many times where I would go to another department for cross curriculum and say, I'm getting ready to do this lesson, and these are the standards. And I know that if it's a history teacher, and I know, I would try to align whatever the kids, if they were 10th grade, whatever world history was doing. So they'd be reading books, about or from authors from that time period, or reading poetry. Or I'd go to the art department and say, we're getting ready to talk about this time period in American literature. What are some paintings or things that I can share so that the kids can actually see? It wasn't just in books and poetry during that time period, these themes and thoughts and ideas were coming out, but also if you look at the art, right? Let's imagine looking at a painting and what do we see? Sometimes when kids see what's happening and I'll use a painting or a photograph, they're better to analyze it first than going in to read something and then trying to analyze a story or a poem.
Yes. And I also feel with art, like using a painting, there's always a backstory to the painting. So if you can share that backstory of the painting with the students that talks about maybe the socioeconomic conditions at the time, or the caste system at the time, or why this artist chose to paint this scenario at the time in contrast to what was going on politically, or in addition to what, then all of a sudden they're hooked, because it's not just dates and names and events. It's like kind of like the seedy underbelly of history.
Real stuff.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm so glad that my question led us here, because I was crossing my fingers, hoping that we would kind of arrive to this place. And I say that because when I was trained to teach in New York, that is how we were trained, that we had to teach holistically. So you had to have time with your music teacher, like literal collaboration with music, PE. It was very holistic, not everything made sense. So if I'm teaching something in science, I'm going to make sure that I have art projects that align with that, in addition to what they get from enrichment, right? Everything just made sense for kids. It made sense for me. And then when I started my career here, it's almost like they deprogrammed me from teaching that way. And after years of frustration, I had to circle back to it, because I just knew it was the right way. And been able to see from two different states, obviously, that when you teach holistically, then even in the building, as opposed to a school that's supportive being an anomaly, it is a way of life.
Yes.
Culture.
Absolutely.
I'm just wanting for other folks to get it, right? The folks that make the decisions,
right?
Or even teachers like you guys that go above and beyond to build community. For the sake of the kids, right? Like we're not going to be drinking paint water in math class. There be some noise. Can there be some music?
What about the glue? What about the glue eating? Is that okay?
Well, it's funny you say that. Like glue sticks, I think some kids eat glue sticks. I would say yes, I've seen some kids eat glue sticks. I think one bite they realize it doesn't taste very good. But what's big with them is the smelly markers.
Oh, yeah.
You remember? And so like kindergarten, the first time they use them, all have like these little dots all over their nose. So we use smelly markers today, clearly, because awesome. you got a little on you there, kid. It's barely noticeable. But yeah, Letitia, what you're saying is I wrote a paper back when I had to go back and take a course so I could get certified for special ed. And the course was methods in teaching, but it was like not what you have to take, for gen ed. It was kind of like taking it one step further. And the paper I wrote was about universal design, which is, what you're talking about. It's like teaching that whole child, the universal design. So it's like everything is connected in education, and we should be teaching that way, how it's all connected, but we don't. We departmentalize and we don't make those connections. And I would love it if the teachers would come to me and say, hey, we're teaching civil rights. What can you do in the art room that would accommodate that? I would be more than happy to. Absolutely. Or the Civil War, or the Revolutionary War, or the explorers. I mean, if you don't have time in your classroom to do the creative things that help solidify a lesson, because it is hands-on, it's physical, They're getting dirty with that history, with that science, with that math, and they are going to remember that muscle memory of building that ship or that, the volcano and, whatever, but they remember that. Come to me. I'll do it in my art room. My standards are based on principles and elements. And so I can play with them any way I want.
And I will, to reiterate, especially for our listeners, anyone who's not tapping into their art and their fine arts department, period, you're really missing out. I remember, the Harlem Renaissance is my favorite time of art, hence the Harlem shirt, just for you, Patsy. Romare Bearden and Jacob Lawrence.
Yeah, I just did a unit on Romare.
So I, teaching fifth grade, I'm like, I have to figure out how I'm going to get all of the standards in so that I can teach this unit that I created on the Harlem Renaissance era. And those kids were eating it up. But I went to my art teacher and she could not believe, how excited I was. And then that I was pulling her in. And so it just made for such great camaraderie and the kids loved it.
There needs to be an openness though to reach out to, because I know a lot of arts teachers that would be very standoffish to that. It's not everybody that would be, yeah, please. They'd be like, do you understand? I have to teach my own stuff. I'm on my own map here. And not everybody thinks like Patsy and I when it comes to that.
Oh, I know.
And I would welcome it. I think it's wonderful.
Yeah. Right.
But not every teacher
I love it.
Waters. But
and
you know
Pete,
what?
Go ahead,
Patsy. No, this is you're the
guest. I
guest.
was gonna say Pete and I, we did a unit on the Harlem Renaissance. I think it was a couple years ago where I said, if I do the art, will you you introduce the music? It was fifth grade. And so the kids were getting it from both sides. And that was really fun because we just kind of created that together. And I was like, well, I'll talk about this and you talk about that. And they'll get this whole unit. And then something happened where I think not all the fifth grades are learning at the same time. I don't know. So we had one good year.
Yeah.
Just the fact that, okay, Fred, I'm sorry, buddy.
No. Finish your thought.
Just the fact that she's saying, I did a unit. I just finished a unit. The fact that an arts teacher is any teacher is being able to say that right now, we're seeing the kids 4 days a week for 40 minutes. And then we don't see them again for 6, 7, depending if there's breaks in between, maybe 8 weeks.
Yeah. You're right.
And it's unbelievable. And she is staying, I've been there 4:30, 5 o'clock at night. She's still there and she's loading up supply bags to go home. So the kids at home can still have a relevant hands-on art experience.
Right.
She's doing it. A lot of teachers have help, parapros. Patsy's in her room doing it herself, loading up these sandwich bags with supplies every week to make sure our littles at home still are getting that love. And it's amazing. So
well, for me, it has to be equitable. Those children did not make the choice to learn from home. And I respect their parents' choice. But if I'm going to be painting in the classroom, those kids are going to be painting at home. It needs to be equitable. I want those children to feel like they're getting a quality art program, even if they're sitting at the coffee table in front of a computer. They still get to do what the kids in the classroom are doing. And they miss it. They miss coming into
they do
art. They tell me that they do. And so that to me is like, that's why I'm there till 6 o'clock, stuffing those bags, making sure they have everything they need so they can do exactly what the kids in the classroom are doing.
There's so many thoughts that are going through my head I'm reflecting on two things that are happening in higher education, right? So there are some universities and colleges that do an excellent job of, we'll call it interdomain, or if you want to call it just general education, where there's, you have your core courses and then you have your general education courses. And those are the ones that all the students will say, why am I taking this? This is such a waste of time. And especially those on the sciences, why am I taking an art class? Why am I taking a literature course? We know there's value in it. Obviously, it's very important. So some universities are doing a great job of making a thematic approach where they'll craft it so that if it's a tech major, they'll take a sequence of general education courses that have a theme that has a tech element to it. So it makes that connection for the student a lot more, I guess, substantive or they are tangible. They get it. But if, and hearing you say that, and with Pete too, you have the arts and they've been marginalized, right? Because there's always this emphasis on, reading, writing, and arithmetic, right? The math, the English, we know there's standards and we have to teach to that. But even in what I do with tech, I see more and more how important STEAM is, not just STEM, that arts element. It helps the creative process on the science side tremendously. So has it ever been thought of or approached, or I'm sure it's been thought of, but why can't that thematic approach work? So if arts are only going to meet once every 8 weeks, why can't you take that and weave that into math that happens every day of the week? Am I just looking at it at the wrong lens, or is it?
We do have STEAM certified schools, and we do have art integrated certified schools. So there are schools that they are an arts integration school. So art is a part of every single element in that school.
Right.
And then we also have STEAM, so that means that the science, the math, the engineering, and the technology and the art teacher all work together to create the curriculum. So those students are getting exactly what you're asking about in every single class.
But in that special school though, right? That's
not the norm. That's the exception.
It just feels to me like, especially where we are as a society, I feel like we're more uneducated than ever before. I mean, you look at all these problems and where they're stemming from. Much of it stems from just not having any perspective of history even.
Yeah.
So it was just funny, before I came on the call here this evening, my daughter, who's she's a theater major, but she was talking about our literature course, and they're reading Chekhov and playing Tchaikovsky in the background, and the word gout comes up in the reading. And well, why did that word come up? Well, that was a big deal at that particular time. And oh, by the way, Chekhov was a physician. You know what I mean? So, but just having that perspective and understanding of something,
right.
I think we already just said this. It gives you a better understanding and value of that. So like when you look at all these issues today, not to get into the politics side of things, I mean, we don't have an understanding of even what the founding forefathers wanted, but they were all students of literature, and they read and they understood the arts and they had appreciation for the arts. Plus they were also they were smart in other areas. But it seems like we're trying to boil everything down always. It seems like to make everything so sterile. Like you said, the standardized testing and so on. And if there are schools that are able to do this, these STEM schools, or it reminds me of even Montessori, right? That's the other way you can go about doing that. Like if those do work. So where's the pushback from mainstream education not to adopt it then?
It's a fear. It's fear. It's the fear of the unknown. It's the not trusting the leaders. Feels like it's one more thing. But it's ironic because if we're all just like Patsy and Peter are explaining to us and giving us a great visual of how they work so well individually and as a team, the same thing could be said if we did all work together and it was kind of cross curriculum and it was weaving in and out, like you said, Fred. I think people don't realize instead of it being more work, it's actually going to feel more collaborative. It's going to feel more supported, like you have each other's back. And back to Letitia's point of this idea of culture and community, right?
Right.
So the comments I'm about to make, I feel like I should have a disclaimer. The thoughts I'm about to share are my own and not the consensus of the entire TPR podcast. I'm just having a reaction because Aaron, you said a word that I just wrote down, or a phrase, fear to control. So, and this is the part of the behind the curtain stuff that we do here at TPR. Because Patsy, you said, you made a statement earlier about teachers being afraid of even risk taking, right? Or even teaching the way they know. I mean, for years, I taught against what I knew was right for kids because fear was used to control my teaching. Bottom line, right? We don't want to talk about the ugly part of education. So we've created this real atmosphere of fear to control teachers so that they do what we want them to do, which is teach to the test, because it's all tied to money.
Right.
That is the bottom line. But what I find very interesting is that the amazing guests that we have on the show, the ones that are still smiling after X amount of years, that still have that passion, that still have that fire, that resilience to keep leaning into the work, are the people that choose to pivot,
Yep.
choose courage, and truly put kids first. When I made up in my mind that I was going to teach the way I knew was best for kids and risk losing my job, and oh well, I'll collect unemployment, go work at Target, whatever. But at some point, you have to come to the place of, these kids are even more important than my livelihood. And I know that that's a hard pill to swallow. It's easy. But then the other side is that I want to encourage teachers. Of course, I don't want anyone to lose their job, but it's almost an unfounded fear, because I am an HR person. You are more likely to lose your job because of your social media, or because you choose to teach kids. They use this fear to really, like I said, control us. And I am having a reaction because I see teachers leaving in droves because of the fear, because of the pressure. And in actuality, the likelihood of you losing your job because you choose to teach is almost non-existent.
Yeah. I mentored.
If you have that courage, if you have that courage to do that and to do it long enough, the results will be seen by everybody. I think
it's the secret sauce, Pete.
It's the secret sauce. I think what Patsy and I do in our school, it's a part of the fabric of the school now. There are some things we probably would rather stop doing. We're like, oh God. and there's no turning back now. It's a part of the fabric of our community. I mean, kids grow up looking forward to some of this.
And I'm sure that you guys would probably agree that in the beginning, taking that leap and just resolving to stay alone if you have to is not easy.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I've been there with you guys. It's not easy. But to your point, Pete, that's legacy work. And that's what we should be striving for.
That's right. That's right. Because they always say, who's the teacher you remember? Yes. And you know that's that teacher, but it's not because of what they taught you. It's because of how they taught you.
Exactly.
And if they made you wear a smock.
Right.
Yes.
With their little tools.
You got the man smock. That's the one.
Right. You got the man smock.
I feel like
colors weren't very manly,
that was
but they
the
were
Breaking Bad smock. I feel like.
Right.
That was Chem Lab. That was for chemistry. That's Smock.
Right. Good cleanup, Patsy. You're awesome. To your point, Patsy, when I remarried and went from Mathis to Jones, I'll never forget the kids coming in to get their class assignments. And, I was in 5th grade and the kids were in line, and 5th grade, who's your teacher? Miss Jones. And the kids were like, who's that? You guys hired someone new. We wanted Miss Mathis. Parents were upset. Like, no, settle down. She got married over the summer. Miss Mathis is now Miss Jones. And my principal, called me over the intercom and she says, you have caused a ruckus down here. Kids, we had to tell them you got married because they didn't know it was you.
I love that.
You're right. It's about how you make them feel and all that good stuff. So thank you.
I love that.
So Patsy, we're going to put on our smocks here. Can you tell us some fun projects that you do with the kids? I'd love to hear some examples.
Okay, let's see. Well, right now we are doing, we just finished working with some color, and I try to talk about the theory of art and touch upon the techniques of art, but I like to throw the artist in. So I'll say we're doing art in the style of, or we are doing art inspired by. And so right now the kindergarten is working with color, and it's with Kandinsky because it's the concentric circles. And that's kind of a favorite of the kids because they get to do crayon, they get to do paint, and they get to talk about resist and the fact that crayon breaks through that water, and all of that. So they love that. My second and first and second graders, we're actually doing Alma Woodsy Thomas because we talk about her color and how she would love to work with contrasting colors together to show the beauty of the unity of the colors together. And then she said that transcends how she felt about humanity in general. She says, I'm not going to talk about the ugliness of man. I'm going to show that the unity of it is beautiful. That when we come together, that's the beauty of it. So the kids are doing this art called Warm Hearts, Cold Hands. And that actually came from, I always have cold hands. I always have. And I used to be really embarrassed when I was a kid because my hands are so cold. And then other kids like, oh, your hands are cold, you know. Well, my grandma said to me one day, well, you know what that means? Cold hands, warm heart. And that was it for me. I was just like, yeah, that is what's going on there. I do have a warm heart. So I shared that story with my kids and said, so we're going to do the warm heart and the cool hands contrast with the paint. But I bring in Alma Woodsy because she does talk about when she paints and she brings those colors together. She likes showing them together as if to try to say to the world, these opposing sides, we're more beautiful when we do work together. And you have to understand that. And so she was fabulous. She didn't even start painting until she was 70 years old. She was an amazing person. So yeah, she was a math teacher. She was a math teacher for years. And then she switched over into art at 70. Yes, I know. Fabulous.
Love it.
So yeah, so her, and then let's see, with the older kids, I've been doing a little bit of Basquiat because I want them to understand the primal energy of his art. And it's great for the older kids because they are so worried about making mistakes. Everything has to be perfect. And with Basquiat, you know, it's like, he was just like slam, slam, slam. And everything that he did was just very hard and edgy and crazy and rough and primitive and primal. And he did what he felt. And so I'm with the older kids, I'm talking about how your art is about how you feel. And if you want it to be perfect, is that really a reflection of who you are? Because now you got to live up to that standard. We're flawed. You're flawed. I'm flawed. Show it in your art. Show that crazy dinosaur with the crown on. Shows that crazy, you know, let's get in there and get messy. So with fifth grade, we're kind of leaning into that a little bit. And I'm hoping they'll get loosen up a little bit. But within all of that learning, and then the fifth grade's doing Mark Rothko, just because I think his stuff is fantastic. You know, it's just all about color and it's all about emotion. And it's all about, you know, how does this color make you feel? Well, if you put these two colors together, what do you think that means? You know, what is that feeling? And so, but because we're dealing with all of that color and energy, I can slide in those lessons about color theory. You know, what are your primary, your secondary, your tertiary? What's your analogous? You know, what's your, what are your, what's a gradation and what are your monochromatic? And I have to say it's so brilliant because with third grade, with the Mark Rothko, they have to do a little, it's kind of like trading cards in the style of Mark Rothko, but I tell them this one has to be complementary colors. This one has to be primary. This has to be secondary, but it has to be in the style of. So they're doing these color bands and we talk about saturation and things like that. And this little guy comes up to me and he says, check out my analogous colors. Miss Rausch, look at my analogous colors. And I'm just like, just the fact that you said that, kid, you know what? Right there, boom. That was my Goldilocks moment today. Just the fact that you said that. And it's just like, and even said the word right, you know? So it's just like, if they love to learn, they're gonna learn. If they love the process, they're gonna learn. And so you know, but when I first got into art, I taught art like a fourth grade teacher. And I was very structured because, you know, you're like the standards. I got to hit these marks. I got to get this, you know, and I taught that way. And I hated it. And I hated what I was teaching. And one day I was in the middle of a lesson and it looked great on paper. You know, it all had hit those standards, hit that technique, hit those principles and elements. And as I'm sharing to the kids what we're going to do, right in the middle of my whole first day of introduction, I went, this is boring. And it was like, I don't want to do this. Do you guys want to do this? And they're like looking at me like, are we allowed to be honest here? Like, and I said, let's not do this. Let's do something else. I can still teach you what I need to teach you, but let's do something else. I don't want to do this. And it was so funny because from that day on, I was just like, if I don't find fun in what I have to teach them, I'm not going to make them do it. I'm not going to teach it to them that way. I will find a fun way to, and if it's not working in the middle of a lesson, I've said to kids, anybody got a better way this could work? Does anybody have a better idea here? Because I'm not feeling this. And they will offer up. Yep. And sometimes it's like, that's a keeper. I'm going to write that down. I like the way you thought about that, and we're going to do it that way from now on. Oh, so, yeah, they become a part of the process, and it just seems to work.
Wow. I wish we had so much time to talk with you tonight. I'm just getting started here, right, Letitia?
Right. I'm like, can I come to your class tomorrow? Can I
let's all go buy our smocks.
Mask up and come on in. And
hopefully we won't get a smock knot, but okay. So this is what we do, Patsy. At the end, we kind of go around and each of us give a little takeaway, a little nugget, something that we just really sparked us in this conversation or we want to take with us. And then we'll give it back to you as our guest to any last thoughts that you'd like to share. Does that sound okay?
Okay.
All right. Pete, I'm going to let you go first.
We got to have her back on because we're going to talk about the paper making machine. We got to get to that.
Paper making machine.
Yes. Complete with rubber duckies. Let's see. Teach towards a lifelong love of learning. And we do that every day, but it means so much when you hear somebody else say it. So that's my number one takeaway. Number two takeaway, listen very carefully, is every music teacher needs an art teacher for when there's a yam in the bathroom.
Yeah, there's that.
She's the one that got the yam.
You're the one.
Yeah. We have lots of those stories.
Oh, that's awesome.
We love you, Patsy. I'm so happy you came on.
Oh,
people need to go back to that episode.
Bio partner. Letitia?
Find the funny. Was on my paper, my notes rather. And I love Patsy's last statement, and I think she wove it through the whole episode is don't take yourself so serious and be okay with pivoting.
Yeah.
Especially during this time.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I was trying to be perfect in an imperfect situation.
Yeah. And normally I kind of let myself go last, but mine kind of fits nicely with Letitia's, so I'm going to do it.
You okay, Fred?
Yeah, I'm losing hearing.
Oh, I thought he was telling me that I lost my audio. Sorry, Fred.
And I didn't hear you, so I'm doing this because I'm like, okay, audio.
Hey, this is part of the funny. This is part of the pivot. I was going to say, Patsy at the beginning said strike and set. And so I wrote that down because I love that. That's that pivoting that you were just talking about, Letitia, right? That you have to kind of, whether something just went really well or something did not go so great, you've got to, when that bell rings and it's time for the new group to come in, you really just have to kind of like take a couple breaths and then just let's redo this sucker, right? Let's see where it goes this time, because you never know.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, Fred.
I'm going to speak if you could hear me. I apologize for the tech if there's a hiccup on this. There's two things. Of course, I have to include the smock knot because it's a fun word to say, and I think there's more to that word. You also said that it became the word of the day, and that's the insightfulness to the playfulness, right? That's that permission that is so needed in the classroom. And then you said something though. If everybody, I think y'all picked up on it. It's been a reoccurring theme with several other teachers that we had on here, and that's asking students for feedback.
Yes.
And, whether it's in creation of the lesson plan or whether it's in creation of an activity, you're involving them in a way that empowers them and it makes them part of the educational process, not just the receiver of the education. Yeah. And I think that's such a great and powerful lesson, because I've shared this with other guests. I said, because then when they get to the upper divisions of education, they're prepared to own their process, because when they do leave high school and they do go into higher ed, they're still spectators, and they can't afford to be spectators at that point. Unfortunately, they are. And if there's more teachers like yourself making them, active contributors or active participants, it's such a great, valuable thing. So I appreciate hearing you say that again. And you've also given me a lot of cool artists to look up. I was just writing down the names as fast as I can, because I believe I've seen Basquet's his work. I can't remember where I saw it on display, because he died very young. So I try to think if it was where it was in our school. We had it up on our campus, I think. So somehow. But thank you for everything.
I was getting ready to call you our very own Google.com, because you are with the information that buddy.
I know.
It's pretty scary. Can you send me the spellings of these artists, please? Because I was lost.
So Patsy, I'm going to give it back to you. Maybe something, what's great about Teachers Pep Rally is, this conversation wasn't really planned, and it went into some really great places that I was not expecting. So maybe even for you, there was kind of an aha moment or something that you said and you realized, oh yeah, this is something I really kind of hold tight to. So any final thoughts or any sparks that you'd like to share?
Well, first of all, I'm always worried that you ask me one question and then I go do. And then at the end, I'm like, wait a minute, that is what you asked me, right? You did ask me. So, I always feel like I kind of got to get reeled back in, because I'm very passionate about it. And so if you ask me the questions, I'm just going to kind of get in there and go on and on. And so, I would say my takeaway because of that, I am very pleased to still feel that passion for it, right? Like to love to be on this show and to share with you what I love to do, but in the telling of what I do, reaffirming that I love it, right? So thank you.
Yeah, this has
for
been
giving me that gift.
Wonderful,
Yes.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
I hope you can feel my virtual hug, Patsy.
I am feeling it.
Don't get creepy, Abrily.
Yeah, buddy.
So Patsy, for our listeners out there, where can they find you if they want to connect?
Well, my art room Instagram is Kincaid Art, at Kincaid Art. And that's where and that's also my Twitter account. And so I do a lot of whatever I put on my Instagram, I also pop over to Twitter through Kincaid Art. And our hashtag for Cobb County is hashtag Cobb Art Rocks. So if you pop in that hashtag, you'll start to see what all the teachers in Cobb County are doing as long as they tag that on there. I'll be honest with you, my Patsy Rausch paper Instagram, I haven't done a lot with because the paper making is a very social art and it's an outdoor art. So it tends to be seasonable. And then obviously with COVID, it's hard to do stuff like that when we can't work on that capacity. But I'll post every once in a while there, but probably Kincaid Art is the best way. I'm not on Facebook. So can't find me there. And
no book of face, Fred.
No,
that's what he likes to call it. All right, well, great. And maybe that'll just give us an opportunity when you are doing the paper making again. We'll have to bring you back on, or maybe some of us will come meet you and you can teach us how to do it. That would be fun.
That'd be awesome.
That would be a lot of fun. I think you guys would really enjoy that.
Cool. Pete, how about our listeners out there? Where can they find us?
Hey, we love getting the paper I need to read. We love hearing feedback, getting feedback, hearing from you guys. We want to hear how much you love Patsy as much as we do. Let us know. We are on Facebook, YouTube. Please subscribe to us. And most importantly, leave a review. Wherever you're listening to us right now, leave us a review. We want to spread the word, build our community, and help TPR get all around the world, raise people up, everybody in the education world. And that's that. We really want to keep this going.
Thank you so much, Patsy, for your time and your thoughts and your passion. I feel like it has gone through the video camera for me, and I'm feeling it. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for having me.
Yay.
Thank you.